Hey, David, how's it going today?
Billy, it's always a pleasure when I get to see you.
That is wonderful. I'm excited to talk with you as usual, but we actually have something new to talk about today, and it's an exciting new film called Beckman. So
Yeah.
take me through. Now, this is different. This is different from not all of your other projects. You've had some really interesting action projects, but this film's a little different. So take us through the plot line. Give us the breakdown.
Yeah, I mean it's okay. It's about a hitman.
Have you ever played a hitman before? Is this your first hitman role?
Oh, I've never played a hitman. It's about Yeah, I think have I played a hitman? I don't know. I mean, the character in Rev Road he's a killing machine. So,
Right.
but and I think all hitmen are very similar. In a way,
It's
that
it's a one-trick pony,
it
really.
really is. I mean, you go in, you shoot people, and then you feel bad about it. I mean,
Right.
or you don't, and then you're just a really bad guy. But you are a bad guy then. Um,
So Beckman he's a hitman though. Your character, the
yeah,
title character is a hitman.
yeah, he's a hitman. He's a hitman who is tired of his life that he's been in. He wants out, and it's similar in the vein of John Wick meets Taken in the way. So you got John Wick who is trying to get out, right? So Beckman's the same. He's been a hitman for too long. He wants out. He wants out so much that he's unwilling to kill his best friend who's now been hired to go kill him. And in the process of it, he stumbles in on this church, and the church, Jeff Fahey plays this pastor, and he gets there, and then all of a sudden, he's dying, and Fahey's character brings him back to life, and says, "You don't have to live this way. You can change." And unbeknownst to us is that Fahey's character as well had his own backstory, and he came out of this. It was more military based, but he came out of his thing too as a killing machine, and he became a pastor. So he ends up training this guy up, Beckman, to take over his church, and with that, Beckman kind of all of a sudden gets this little family that he never had before, and he starts to find life and purpose. He takes in this runaway girl who kind of becomes his daughter, and then Billy Baldwin plays this crazy lunatic cult leader who wants this girl back because she represents his muse. And in the process of it, chaos ensues, and he kills a lot of Beckman's family. And now Beckman is on a revenge tour to get his daughter back.
Wow. So there's a lot there's a lot going on there. Now, this is a film where there's fighting scene. I mean, there's a lot of action, right? So what is it like as an actor to play that? Like, how do you do that? How do you do those action roles? What does it take?
Yeah, I mean it takes a lot of energy.
I would imagine. I mean, in seeing it, it looks like it was difficult to do. I mean, how hard is it? How hard is it to simulate a fight scene? I've always wondered this.
I mean, you're learning the fight scene, so it's like it's just as long as, I mean, I have some fighting stuff in my background, martial arts and that kind of stuff, and so I've been doing it in a lot of the End Times movies for a long time. Not so much in Malibu Dan, but in other things, and so uh, the kind of the fun thing about Beckman is we wanted to spend more time on these action sequences, and so we shot this movie for 26 days, which is a long time when our normal films last about 15. So we had more time to spend on rehearsals and then the actual action sequences and the fight scenes. And so we had a smaller crew, and we spent more time just on every beat of the movie. And so for that, I think the movie is just really good in a lot of ways. Is my opinion. I mean, I'd like to believe so. I certainly had more time as an actor to work on things. And and then of course action sequences are always better when you have more time.
Yeah, well, and it's different in a lot of ways, right? Because movies that are aimed at certain audiences, the faith audience, let's say, there's a certain sort of way that a lot of these films are done. You don't get a lot of action films. Like we haven't really gotten to that place. You have done a bunch of them. You talk about the end times films, Revelation Road series, and all that. But this is different, and it sort of meets the audience in a different way. There's a lot of people who say, listen, we want these movies that have good messages, even if they're gritty at moments. We want more of these. We want young men to be able to relate. So how do you think Beckman sort of fills that void for people?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you're an action fan, it certainly is something that really hasn't been done in our industry, like you had said, except for, and I don't really know. Maybe other people have done more action things, but Gabriel Sabloff is this writer director and he's an amazing editor as well. He's an amazing filmmaker, and he did our Rev Roads 1, 2, and 3, and then he did Samson. Those big fight scenes that Samson does, he's the one who put those together and shot them and directed those, and so he's very skilled at this. That's like his specialty is action. In fact, that's how I met him. John Gunn was a friend of mine for a long time, since I think he was 21 when I met him. And John and I did, I did his senior thesis movie. Now, if you don't know who John Gunn is, John did a little movie called Do You Believe? Case for Christ. He's done a bunch of our films. In fact, he did, he also worked a lot on God's Not Dead, A Light in Darkness.
Well, David, I worked with him for the one scene that I had in it, because I was, I didn't star in that movie,
right.
but I had a scene in that movie and I got to work with him. So
right, you did.
Yes.
I forgot about that.
Judge Janine and I got to work with him. So
you were
fun.
very good, by the way. And Judge,
well, thank you. Yeah, I stole the show. I know.
The other day, she said, what a pleasure it was to work with Billy.
See, look at.
I wouldn't have done the movie if it wasn't for Billy
Hallowell. Yes, my 30-second scene stole the entire film.
It did.
I didn't mean to eclipse you. I apologize for that in that film. But
Burt Young does it in Beckman.
So though this is kind of cool because it's different, and I feel like there's a lot of great Christian movies, and they're out there and they meet a certain audience, but this is meeting people in a different place, and it's maybe bringing in some other types of people, or Christians and others, who they just want a good movie and they want a positive sort of message in the end in some way. They want to take something beneficial away but get some action, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, my goal has always been, I think, people have said from when we did God's Not Dead, okay, and God's Not Dead blew up, and it was, became the #1 independent movie of 2014 and all these other things. And when we did all those interviews with Access Hollywood, Entertainment Tonight, and LA Times, New York Times, all those people, they were all saying, well, are you going to be now getting out of the faith industry because you have finally made it, right? And I keep saying the same thing, although people forget that, or maybe, I don't know. But the idea of, am I trying to break out of what I do? No, I mean, I've been doing it for so long. I'm so old that, I mean, I think I did my first faith movie when I was 22 years old. So, and I've always had a passion from when I was a high school kid, growing up in the church, seeing the Corrie ten Boom movie, and like, you think about the Worldwide Pictures did those, those movies that would play on our Sunday night movie nights, and they would never actually finish. The joke is that they and it's not even a joke, it's kind of true, is that we never actually finished the Christian movie because inevitably the projector would eat the film, or the sound would never work, and it was always a great disappointment of me, as a child, because it was very exciting to see a Christian movie on a Sunday night, and then, it goes down and you never saw the end of it. So not that reason of why I wanted to do this, but I've always had this passion for, how do you bring faith, this faith that I grew up in, this faith that I had since I was a young child, how can you put that into cinema? And And I believe that I was called to do that. I don't believe when I make a movie, no matter, even if it is just an action movie, or you're able to work for Universal or some, big studio, it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is, where in the world can you bring in really the organic faith element? And ultimately, that's just something that I feel like, if you don't do, or if I don't do that, I miss something, because
Mm.
there's a million other people making all these other movies, but hardly, there's not a lot of people making faith movies and then dealing with that organic issue of faith. And I think it's so important. And I really love delving into a character and finding, okay, where does God, we know God exists. We know he's got a purpose for each and every one of us. How in the world does that relate to, it's not just, a pastor and God's not dead, or an atheist, or, whatever, people in a marriage movie, or it's in every realm, in
Yeah.
every way in cinema. And Beckman is just an extension of that. There never been, unless somebody shows me something, I've never seen a faith-based movie, revenge movie, about a hit.
Yeah.
And so,
Right. Well, and it's also a guy who, like, what I like about it that I think is so interesting. A lot of Christian movies, it's like the person goes through something difficult, they overcome it, and it's done. But real life is complicated. Sometimes we go through different journeys, right? You get your life on track because you went through something, and then something happens, or you fall off. Like, life is complicated, and so to have a character who seems to go through a realistic sort of series of events, I think is pretty cool too.
well, and then it's also, there's something, I think, special about it, in the way that, a lot of us like the extension of what we used to, or what we normally see. And the idea of, what in the world does a hitman go through, who's killing people, who then comes to faith, and then has, again, that old self rise up. How in the world is he going to come back to faith, or how in the world is he going to deal with this? And it just kind of creates this spectacle that we're not used to seeing. And I think that's something that Beckman brings in the way that it's, a lot of us have never thought about it. You don't go through, I
Yeah.
don't go through my normal day every day going, what does a hitman think about, if I just knocked off this whole neighborhood right today?
Right. How do you
Um,
come to terms with that? How do you
yeah,
journey through that? I mean, we laugh because it's such a random, but it's so interesting because and that's what good storytelling is, though, right? Getting a chance to kind of see how somebody journeys or processes through something, and that's what I love. What I love about it. So, what's the big takeaway for you?
well, yeah, and well, the big takeaway, I think, is that there's that God's forgiveness is through and through. It doesn't stop with, well, okay, I'm going to forgive. I'll forgive a pastor. I'll forgive, whatever, plumber, and maybe a white collar stock trader. But I will not forgive a hitman, or I will not forgive, like, God's forgiveness is, as we've seen all throughout the Bible, is for everyone, and
Mm.
there's always a second chance. And I'm not saying that it excuses you to go, kill people or do whatever you want to do. It is, God is faithful always,
Mm.
and He's always there waiting for you to come back. And so I think that's just the takeaway to this, is that a lot of people would say, well, this is too violent, or there's way too much action in this, or I don't get it. Why? How can a hitman have faith, or any of those type of things? However, there's a beautiful, just even I don't want to say love story, but just a beautiful story about love between a father and an adopted daughter in this. I think there's a story, there's like a lot of different nuances in this story that, one of my favorite movies I loved was Man on Fire, and with Denzel, and there's a lot of faith in there, and he was a hitman. So it has, it goes off on a whole other thing that, as I don't think our faith-based audience is quite ready for all that. However, however, there's a beautiful relationship between him and an adopted daughter, almost, so to speak, while he tries to get her back. You know, this movie definitely has a lot of those overtones from Man on Fire, from Taken, from John Wick. And all I would say is that, no, we're not a ripoff of those, because I don't really like movies that just, you know, rip something off and then make a duplicate print of it. Ours, I believe, is organic and telling its own story. It just has, you know, there's no new stories over the last thousands and thousands of years that, you know, humanity has existed. It's
Exactly.
you know, stories are the same, they just tell them in different ways, and I think Beckman is a fresh take of this.
We'll see you again very soon.
Thank you, Billy, as always.